The rain fell like it had been waiting for centuries to wash this place clean. Cold, relentless, and heavy, it struck the cobblestones of the Roman marketplace with a kind of anger, like the heavens themselves were tired of what they saw below. The air reeked of smoke and wet iron. Chains clinked in the distance, dragged across stone by trembling hands. The faint cries of slaves mixed with the growl of thunder, echoing through the arcades of broken marble and ancient pillars. Statues of forgotten gods looked down with blind eyes, their faces streaked with rain, as if even they mourned for the living. And there, lying face down in the mud, her body trembling against the cold, was a young woman. Her name was Lyria. She wasn't crying. She didn't even make a sound. Her breath came in sharp, uneven gasps, her lips blue, her hands clawing desperately at the earth as if it could hide her from what she'd just escaped. Her dress, once white, was now torn and heavy with dirt. The fabric clung to her legs, or what was left of her ability to move them. From the waist down, she felt nothing. No pain, no warmth. Just the heavy, hollow emptiness that had haunted her since that night, the night her stepmother decided she no longer deserved to walk among the living. The thunder cracked again, closer this time, shaking the ground beneath her palms. Somewhere behind her, men shouted. Boots slammed against the whetstone. The guards had noticed her absence. They always did. One of them yelled, his voice sharp and cruel, "The broken bride is trying to crawl again." Laughter followed, low, mocking, the kind that crawled under her skin and made her want to disappear. "Let her try," another voice sneered. "She'll never make it past the gate. The Alpha's men don't want scraps like her." Their words dug deeper than the mud beneath her nails. Lyria pressed her palms harder into the ground, dragging herself forward inch by inch. Her arms burned, shaking with effort. The cold rain blinded her eyes, but she didn't stop. Every breath was a battle. Every movement a rebellion against the world that had decided she was nothing. Once, she'd dreamed of love. Of dancing under moonlight, her bare feet on warm grass, her laughter echoing through the hills. Now, her world had shrunk to this, a desperate crawl through filth, beneath the eyes of men who thought she didn't deserve to breathe. But even broken things have hearts that refuse to die. She wasn't crawling toward freedom, she was crawling toward herself. Behind her, the shouts grew louder. A whip cracked through the air, slicing the rain in two. She flinched at the sound, her body recoiling out of instinct, though the lash didn't reach her this time. Her back was already marked by enough scars to remember what pain felt like. And yet, her spirit wouldn't bend. There was a light in her eyes, faint but unyielding, like the last ember of a dying fire that refuses to fade. The guards laughed again, watching her from a distance. To them, she was a spectacle. A joke. A girl with useless legs and too much pride to stay where she was thrown. But Lyria's world was narrowing. The marketplace blurred around her, the stalls, the torches, the cruel eyes. All she could focus on was the rain-soaked path ahead. A single streak of silver light ran across her vision, lightning, maybe, or something more. Because for a moment, she felt it. A warmth under her skin. A tremor that wasn't from the cold. It started in her palms, small, faint, like a heartbeat against her own. Then it spread, slow and cautious, climbing up her arms. It wasn't pain. It wasn't comfort. It was something entirely different. Something alive. She froze, afraid to move. The warmth pulsed again, brighter now, until her veins shimmered faintly beneath the mud. Silver. Beautiful. Terrifying. Her breath hitched. No one else noticed. The rain hit it. The noise swallowed it. But she knew. Something inside her wasn't as broken as they thought. The thunder rolled across the sky again, followed by another crack of lightning, and in that split second of light, she thought she saw him. A figure standing at the edge of the marketplace, half-shrouded by shadow. Tall. Still. Watching. For a heartbeat, their eyes met across the storm. And the world seemed to stop breathing. His presence was impossible to mistake. The Alpha King of the North. Damien Valen. The wolf feared by all who served under the moon's empire. He stood there, cloaked in darkness, rain sliding down his shoulders like liquid steel. His gaze was unrelenting, piercing through the distance as if he could see straight into her soul. Lyria's chest tightened. She didn't know if she should be afraid or relieved. No one looked at her like that, not since before the poison, before the curse, before the world decided she wasn't worth saving. But his eyes, they saw her. Not her weakness. Not her shame. Her. And that terrified her even more. The guards hadn't noticed him yet. They were still laughing, calling her names, daring each other to drag her back by her hair. But she kept looking toward the figure in the storm, her heart pounding with something she couldn't name. Hope? No. Hope was dangerous. Hope got people killed. Still, she couldn't look away. Her arms gave out for a moment, and her body collapsed into the mud. The shock of cold stole her breath. Rain filled her mouth, bitter and metallic. She coughed, trembling, trying to push herself up again. The sound of boots drew closer. One of the guards kicked her side, laughing when she didn't scream. Too proud to beg, huh? Your stepmother should have thrown you into the river when she had the chance. The mention of that woman's name made her skin crawl. Her stepmother, Lady Lyria, beautiful, cruel, and adored by everyone who didn't know her. To the world, she was the perfect noblewoman. To Lyria, she was the monster who had slowly poisoned her body and soul. It was Lyria who had locked her away, who had whispered lies into her father's ears until he could no longer tell truth from manipulation. It was Lyria who had made sure no man would ever touch her, no friend would ever visit her, no one would ever see her as anything but broken. And it was Lyria who had arranged this public humiliation, this auction for the unwanted. Because in this twisted version of Rome, when a woman was deemed useless, she was sold. Lyria wasn't just being punished. She was being erased. But not today. She could feel that pulse again, the strange silver heartbeat in her veins. It called to her, whispering that she was more than what they said. That there was power waiting to be claimed, buried under years of pain and silence. She wanted to reach for it. She wanted to believe it. But the fear of the unknown was worse than the chains. Because power had a price. And she'd already lost everything worth paying for. The rain turned colder. The wind howled through the stone arches. One of the torches went out, snuffed by the storm. The guards cursed under their breath, their attention breaking for a moment. And in that fragile sliver of time, Lyria lifted her head. Her eyes found him again. The Alpha King. He hadn't moved. He was still watching, his expression unreadable. But the air around him felt heavier, charged. Even from across the distance, she could feel his presence pressing against her chest, as if the storm itself bent around him. He took one step forward. The sound echoed louder than thunder. And then another. The guards froze. One of them turned, eyes widening. Who's that? The others followed his gaze, and when they saw the sigil carved into the man's armor, the silver wolf crest glowing faintly under the rain, they stumbled back in fear. Alpha Damien, one whispered, voice breaking. Lyria didn't understand why her heart ached, why her body trembled. Not from the cold this time, but from something deeper, something raw. She'd heard of him, of course. Everyone had. They said his wolf was born under a blood moon. That he'd destroyed entire clans with his bare hands. That his heart was colder than ice, his justice unforgiving. A man no one dared to defy. A beast no one dared to love. And yet, as he walked toward her through the rain, she felt seen. Not pitied. Not shamed. Seen. The guards dropped to their knees, bowing so quickly their armor clattered. One of them stammered, "Your Majesty, forgive us. We didn't know you were watching." But Damien didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on her. When he reached her, he stopped. The world held its breath. Rain dripped from his cloak, the droplets sliding down the hard lines of his face. Up close, he was even more terrifying. Every inch of him radiated danger, dominance, power. Yet, there was something in his eyes that didn't match the stories. Something human. He looked down at her, lying there in the mud, her body trembling, her face pale and smeared with dirt. And then, softly, barely above a whisper, he said, "Who did this to you?" The question wasn't for an answer. It was a promise. The guards flinched, glancing at each other. One tried to speak. She's just a cripple, my lord. Her stepmother, Lady Lyria, she said the girl was cursed. We were told to. Silence. The single word stopped them cold. Lyria couldn't breathe. His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the kind of weight that came from absolute power, the kind that could shatter kingdoms or save them. For the first time in years, she felt something shift inside her chest. Something dangerously close to hope. But she didn't trust it. Hope was a liar. Still, when he knelt beside her, his gloved hand reaching out, not to grab, not to claim, but to lift a strand of wet hair from her face, her body forgot how to tremble. His touch was careful, almost reverent. And yet, his eyes burned with restrained fury. He turned toward the guards. Untie her. Now. They hesitated, unsure if they'd heard right. He stood, towering over them, his aura flaring like a shadow given life. I said, untie her. The chains hit the ground. Lyria didn't know whether to run or collapse. Her arms gave way again, but before she could fall, he caught her, his arms strong around her shoulders, his warmth searing through the cold. He didn't speak. He didn't ask permission. He simply held her there, steadying her as if he'd been doing it all his life. The storm eased slightly, the thunder fading into a distant growl. The crowd that had gathered now stood in stunned silence. And then, Damien Valen, the alpha feared by kings, looked up at the trembling guards and said words that would haunt them forever. She's not cursed. His voice was quiet, dangerous. She's mine. If you believe no one deserves to be broken for another's greed, subscribe to Sophie's romance collections. Only heartless souls would ignore a cry like hers. Thunder rolled again, echoing through the hollow bones of the market, as though the heavens themselves protested what was unfolding below. The air hung thick, charged, every droplet of rain trembling before it fell. The crowd, once roaring with mockery and trade, shifted in restless murmurs. Something primal rippled through them, a soundless warning, a weight that made even the guards still their laughter. From the far end of the square, the people began to part. Not by command, by instinct. The scent of dominance moved before him, cold iron, wild pine, a faint trace of danger that crawled down the spine. The alpha king of the north, Damien Valen, walked into the chaos like a storm given form. Every step he took pressed into the soaked earth with quiet authority. No one spoke. No one dared. The torches bent in the wind as though bowing. His cloak, black as a moonless night, dragged through the mud, whispering against stone. His eyes, gray, sharp, unrelenting, swept across the trembling market until they found her. The girl, half buried in the filth of her own blood and rainwater, body shaking from exhaustion, yet somehow, her gaze still fought to lift toward the approaching figure. Her breath hitched. She didn't know his name, but her soul recognized the force that entered that square. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. Damien's chest rose and fell once, slow, deliberate. Beneath his composure, his wolf stirred, restless, pacing against the inside of his skin. That faint silver glow under the girl's bruised flesh, he saw it even through the rain. The energy pulsed faintly, matching the rhythm of the storm's lightning. Something ancient, familiar. Something he shouldn't have been able to see. And then her eyes met his. It was not defiance that struck him first. It was sorrow. A sorrow too vast for her young frame, too old for her years. It called to something buried deep within him, something he had buried long ago, the part that still remembered what it meant to protect rather than destroy. He stopped only a few paces from her. The guards shifted uneasily, unsure whether to bow or flee. The crowd, pressed back by fear, held their breath. Even the wind stilled, as though waiting for what he would say. His voice, when it came, was low, rough, threaded with command. Who did this to her? The words didn't echo, they struck. The guards stiffened. The girl's stepmother, standing behind them in her jeweled veil, forced a brittle smile, feigning grace. She lied. She smiled as though this cruelty were justified. She called the girl useless, cursed, unfit for a man's touch. Damien's gaze never moved from the girl, but his jaw clenched. A muscle ticked in his temple. The wolf within him growled, a sound no one could hear, yet every instinct in the square reacted to it. Birds took flight from the rooftops. The torches flickered violently. The stepmother's words slithered through the silence, trying to weave deceit into order. But there was no order here now. Only him. Damien's eyes burned brighter as rain slid down his face, tracing the edge of a scar beneath his jaw. He didn't blink. Didn't flinch. He didn't even seem to breathe as his voice broke through again, soft, steady, lethal. Then she will not be a bride. His gaze dropped to the girl, mud-streaked, trembling, unbroken. She will be my mate. The words shattered the air. Gasps erupted. The crowd recoiled as though the declaration itself carried lightning. The stepmother's mask faltered, cracking under the weight of disbelief. Her lips parted, ready to protest, but no sound came. Damien's wolf stilled inside him, claimed her silently. The bond, though unspoken, trembled through the invisible space between them. The girl's body shook, not from cold this time, but from something she couldn't name. Her heart stumbled, then raced, an ache blooming deep within her chest. She wanted to speak, to ask why, to understand what sin or mercy this was, but her voice had long been taken by fear. The rain began again, heavier now. Each drop struck her skin like a whisper from heaven, washing away blood and filth as though the world itself wished to see her clean. And still, he stood there, unmoving, unyielding, eyes locked on the fragile creature before him as if daring anyone to touch her again. The guards hesitated, glancing between him and the stepmother. None dared speak. None dared move. Damien finally crouched, his tall frame folding gracefully, a shadow against the mud. The scent of him, earth, rain, wolf, filled the air around her. He reached out a gloved hand, but didn't touch. His fingers hovered inches from her cheek, trembling with restraint. His wolf urged him to claim her now, to shield her, to tear apart anyone who had caused her pain. But his human side fought for control. She flinched slightly, expecting another strike. But none came. Only silence. Then his voice, low, barely audible. "Look at me." Her eyes fluttered open, hazy with tears and pain. When they met his, something ancient pulsed between them, like two broken pieces of the same star finally recognizing each other in the dark. He felt it. She felt it. And neither could escape it. Damien's breath hitched. His control faltered for the briefest second. His wolf pushed forward, testing the barrier between man and beast. He forced it back with a clenched jaw, swallowing the growl that burned in his throat. The bond was dangerous. Forbidden. A king did not take a crippled girl as his mate. But the pull was undeniable, like gravity itself had chosen her. Her heartbeat echoed in his chest. Her pain crawled beneath his skin. Every bruise on her body felt like a personal insult. He rose slowly, his towering presence eclipsing her small frame. "Take her chains off," he ordered, his tone quiet, but the command carried a weight that no one dared resist. The guards scrambled. Metal clattered. The sound of chains hitting stone was almost deafening in the silence. As the cold iron fell away, she gasped softly, her ankles raw, skin broken. Damien's gaze flicked down, catching every mark, every wound, each one carved into his memory like a vow. When she tried to move, her legs trembled and gave out. He caught her before she fell. The contact seared through both of them. Her body stiffened, his breath faltered. The warmth of her skin, fragile and trembling, felt like a spark pressed to dry tinder. His wolf howled inside him, mine. But he didn't speak it aloud. Not yet. He simply held her there, suspended between agony and salvation, between storm and calm. His hand, rough from battle, cupped her fragile shoulder, steadying her. Her heartbeat stuttered beneath his touch. Around them, whispers grew, fearful, astonished, envious. The stepmother's painted lips quivered with outrage, her eyes darting toward the guards for support. But none would meet her gaze. Her power died the moment his voice filled that square. Damien turned his head slowly toward her. The faintest trace of a smile, cold, cruel, touched his lips. It wasn't amusement. It was promise. The kind that said there would be reckoning. And then, without another word, he gathered the girl into his arms. The crowd fell silent. Even the storm seemed to pause. She weighed almost nothing, her body limp, but her presence burned through him like wildfire. He could feel every shiver, every labored breath, every ounce of fear and confusion clinging to her. She was trying to resist his hold even now, but her strength was gone. Her pride, though, was still there, faint, stubborn, alive. He admired that. As he turned to leave, the people instinctively stepped back, clearing his path. None dared question his claim. None dared touch the girl now marked by the Alpha's will. The stepmother called out something, a plea, a protest, maybe a curse, but her voice was swallowed by thunder. Damien didn't look back. The rain followed him out of the square, washing the mud and blood from his boots, as if erasing every trace of what had been done to her. He didn't speak again until they reached the end of the path, where the torches dimmed, and the night began to thicken into forest. His wolf strained against him, desperate to surface, to understand what she was. He stopped beneath a dying tree, the roots twisted and old. The air around them was cold enough to bite. Her head rested weakly against his chest. The faint silver glow beneath her skin pulsed again, brighter this time. He felt it against his heart. The wolf inside him stilled. Watched. Waited. Damien looked down at her, at this broken, cursed, defiant girl, and for the first time in years, something inside him shifted. Not pity. Not anger. Something far more dangerous. Hope. And as the thunder rolled again in the distance, he whispered, so quietly it could have been mistaken for the wind. Mine. If you believe no soul should be left to break in silence, subscribe to Sophie's romance collections. Because every shattered heart deserves to be seen. The night deepened as the Alpha King moved through the drenched forest, the weight of the girl fragile in his arms. Rain whispered through the trees, running in silver lines down his cloak, dripping from her tangled hair. The thunder had faded to a distant murmur, as though the storm itself now followed in silence. Her name, he learned only through the whispers of the guards who had dared to breathe it before fear silenced them, Lyria. Lyria. A name that once might have been spoken with pride, perhaps carved into marble or sung in the halls of some ancient manor. But here, beneath the weight of night, it sounded like a ghost, soft, fading, forgotten. She stirred faintly against him, breath shallow, each exhale a trembling echo. Her skin was cold, yet beneath that chill, something pulsed, faint but alive. A quiet rhythm that didn't belong to any ordinary mortal. He could feel it against his chest. And it haunted him. Damien's eyes flickered once more to the faint silver glow beneath her bruised skin. It shimmered like starlight trapped under flesh, a light fighting not to die. His wolf, restless, prowled behind his ribs, whispering warnings he didn't understand. She wasn't ordinary. And he knew it. But she was broken. And he couldn't walk away. The forest opened ahead, revealing the faint flicker of torchlight from the ancient road that led to the northern keep. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of stone, rain, and something older, memory. Lyria's mind drifted somewhere far beyond the storm, beyond the pain. She dreamed. In her dream, the world was warm again. The halls of her father's estate glittered with sunlight, the smell of wild roses spilling from the courtyard. She remembered laughter, the soft, innocent sound that used to belong to her. The days before the sickness in her legs, before the chains, before her name was cursed. But dreams have a cruel way of turning. The laughter faded. The sunlight bent into shadow. She saw her stepmother again, the jeweled serpent who had slithered her way into her father's heart. The woman's beauty was deceptive, too perfect, too polished. Eyes like molten gold, always watching, always weighing. That night played before her again, the night everything ended. The banquet had been lavish. The air rich with the scent of wine and roasted lamb. Her father sat at the head of the table, weary but smiling. Guests toasted her future, her beauty, her promise. She was 17, filled with dreams of seeing the empire beyond the valley. And then, the cup. A silver goblet, glimmering under candlelight, offered with a smile that hid venom. She had lifted it without thought, laughter still on her lips. The taste of the wine was sweet, too sweet. And then, the numbness began. Her fingers trembled. The goblet slipped. The sound of shattering metal against marble echoed. The world tilted sideways. Her father's voice shouted her name, distant, fading. The woman's laughter, low, satisfied, cut through the blur. Then darkness. When she woke, she couldn't move her legs. The sunlight no longer reached her bed. Her father wouldn't meet her eyes. Weeks turned into months, months into years. The servants whispered of curses, of punishment from the gods. Her stepmother spread the tale herself, claiming Lyria's body was poisoned by her own arrogance, that she had tempted fate. And her father. He believed it. The guilt ate him alive, but weakness made him silent. He let the woman rule the house. Let her starve his daughter of dignity, of freedom, of hope. Until one day, Lyria stopped speaking. But silence has its own language. In the depths of that stillness, she began to hear things, faint whispers that curled through her dreams. A name she didn't know. A song of fire and silver. A promise that her bloodline was not yet finished. At first, she thought it was madness. Perhaps it was. But sometimes, in the dark, when her heart raced and her body trembled, her hands would glow faintly, silver light beneath her skin, as though something ancient stirred beneath the surface. She hid it. She feared it. And still, it grew stronger. Now, in the Alpha's arms, those whispers returned, louder, clearer, urgent. The rain's rhythm beat in time with her heart, and deep within her, that forbidden light pulsed once more. Her body might have been frail, but her spirit wasn't. And for the first time in years, her soul felt seen. The Alpha's hold tightened as though he sensed it too, that awakening beneath her skin, that invisible storm building within her blood. His wolf stirred, ears pricked, scenting something old and powerful. He didn't understand it yet, but every instinct in him screamed that this girl, this broken creature, carried a secret that could shatter kingdoms. The path ahead darkened as they neared the keep. The rain eased, replaced by the heavy silence of old pines. Lyria's breathing steadied, but her dreams deepened. In that dream, she stood at the edge of a silver lake. Her reflection shimmered, no longer broken, no longer bound. Behind her, figures emerged faceless, cloaked in mist. Their voices merged into one. "Daughter of flame," they whispered, "your blood remembers." She turned, frightened. "Who are you?" But they only smiled. "When the moon bleeds silver, he will find you. And you will remember who you are." She reached out, but the vision shattered. She gasped awake. Her body trembled violently, pain surging through her limbs like fire. The Alpha halted, lowering her carefully to the ground. Her eyes fluttered open, wild, confused, glistening with tears. He saw the fear in her face, the panic that came with awakening to pain she couldn't understand. But beneath it, he also saw defiance, small, but alive. Her lips parted, breath shaking as though her body struggled between worlds, the mortal and something beyond. And for the first time, Damien felt uncertainty. He had faced armies. He had conquered tribes, crushed rebellions, silenced threats. But nothing in all his reign prepared him for this, for the trembling girl whose presence could quiet his wolf and set fire to his pulse in the same breath. The bond between them pulsed again, alive, electric, real. He didn't want it. He didn't understand it. Yet he couldn't break it. He turned his face away briefly, forcing control back into his voice, into his body. But when his eyes found her again, control slipped like sand through his fingers. Lyria's gaze met his, faint but steady. In that fragile moment, something passed between them, not words, not thought, but recognition. As though somewhere in the buried bones of time, they had met before. The faint glow beneath her skin flared again. He saw it clearly now, the same hue as the moonlight that once crowned the ancient royal line of Lyria. A lineage said to have vanished generations ago. A line of seers, warriors, and flame-born shifters who could wield the light of the gods themselves. But that was legend. Myth. And yet, she glowed. Damien's pulse thundered. His mind fought to dismiss it, to bury the thought, but the wolf within him bowed its head, low and reverent. Lyria's strength faded, her body slumping once more against his chest. Exhaustion claimed her, but her dreams whispered still, dreams of silver fire, of wings in the dark, of a kingdom drowned in betrayal. He lifted her again, silent, and continued toward the keep. The northern fortress rose from the mist like a phantom, ancient stone, carved with sigils long forgotten by men. The gates opened at his approach. Guards bowed, uncertain, whispering among themselves as the Alpha King carried the broken girl past them. The great hall burned with torchlight, casting golden ripples across the cold stone walls. The scent of smoke, pine, and iron filled the air. Servants froze as he entered, their eyes wide. None spoke. He strode straight to the chamber nearest the hearth, where warmth bled through the air. He laid her gently on the bed, her damp hair spreading across the linen like dark silk. For a moment, he simply stood there, watching. The firelight flickered over her face, softening the bruises, catching the faint shimmer that still lingered beneath her skin. She looked otherworldly fragile, yet impossibly radiant. He couldn't look away. Every part of him screamed to leave her, to close the door and forget the pull that bound him. But his feet refused to move. Instead, he found himself sitting beside her, his gloved hand hovering just above her wrist. Her pulse fluttered beneath the skin, slow, unsteady, but alive. His wolf shifted again, restless. It wanted to touch her, to claim, to mark. But Damien knew what that would mean. He closed his eyes, forcing the beast back. His breath came rough, uneven. The scent of her filled him, soft, rain-soaked, threaded with something faintly wild. He exhaled sharply, leaning back in the chair, his eyes never leaving her. He didn't understand what she was. But something deep within told him that saving her wasn't mercy, it was destiny. And destiny rarely came without a price. The flames crackled softly, casting their glow over both of them, the king and the cursed girl, bound by something neither had chosen. As sleep pulled her under again, her lips parted slightly, murmuring words he couldn't understand, an ancient language, soft as wind, powerful as thunder. The sigils carved into the walls flickered faintly in response, their glow echoing her breath. Damien rose slowly, the realization creeping through him like cold fire. This wasn't madness. It wasn't coincidence. It was awakening. Lyria was not what the world believed her to be. And neither, perhaps, was he. If her story touched something inside you. If you believe broken souls still carry light, subscribe to Sophie's Romance Collections. Every heartbeat deserves to be heard. The Alpha's fortress loomed like a god-carved monument against the dying storm. Each spire rose from the mountain as if the rock itself bent to serve him. Wind swept through the citadel's arches, carrying the scent of rain, iron, and an old magic that slept within the walls. It was a place of legends and oaths, of bloodlines too proud to forget their ghosts. Damien crossed the great bridge, his boots echoing over whetstone, carrying Lyria's fragile body close to his chest. The torches along the path sputtered, their flames bending toward her instead of away, as if drawn by her. He felt it too, that quiet hum beneath her skin, a rhythm older than the Empire itself. It pulled at the air, at the bones of the citadel, at something hidden deep inside him. When the gates opened, the guards bowed low, but their eyes followed her. Some crossed themselves, whispering prayers in fear. Others simply stared, their pupils flashing gold before they looked away. They could smell it, the wrongness, or perhaps the power. The grand hall awaited them, carved from black marble veined with silver lines that pulsed faintly like veins beneath skin. Above, tapestries told stories of the first kings, the wolf-blooded emperors who once ruled the realms before they fell to their own greed. At the center of it all, a throne stood empty. Damien had never liked sitting on it. It reminded him that power was never free. He moved past it and descended the staircase that led to the lower sanctum, where healers worked and ancient scrolls whispered in the dark. The corridors there were narrow, their walls carved with symbols that shimmered faintly in the torchlight. Every mark was a fragment of history, vows, wars, curses. And somewhere among them, one prophecy had been sealed and forgotten. He placed her on the stone bed that had been warmed with wolf fire. Her breathing was shallow, her face pale but serene, as if she floated between two worlds. The healer, an old priest with sightless eyes, approached and bowed. He did not ask questions. He simply began to listen to her pulse, to the air, to whatever unseen spirit stirred around her. After a long silence, his voice cracked through the stillness. "My king," he whispered, "this girl is not dying. She is awakening." Damien's eyes narrowed. "Explain." The old man's hand trembled as he reached toward Lyria's legs. His fingers hovered an inch above her skin but never touched. "She carries the seal of the flame's heir," he murmured. "It sleeps beneath her paralysis. It binds her power, keeps it from devouring her." The Alpha's jaw tightened. "That's superstition." The priest's blind eyes turned toward him, sightless yet seeing more than any man should. "Superstition built this citadel, my king. Do not forget whose bones you walk upon." The words lingered in the air like smoke. The old man gestured toward the shelves. There, among relics and scrolls bound in wolf hide, he pulled a faded parchment marked with the crest of the First Dynasty. The ink had bled with time, but the words still carried weight. "When the crippled flame rises, the cursed Alpha shall be redeemed. Yet her awakening shall burn the world anew." Damien's breath caught, his heart thudding once, twice, too hard. He had heard fragments of that myth before, a story told in hushed tones to frighten pups. But no one believed it. Not until now. He looked down at Lyria, at the faint glow beneath her bruised skin. Something about it resonated with the beast inside him, that eternal hunger, that curse he had carried since birth. His wolf stirred restlessly, pacing, uncertain. Could she truly be the one? The crippled flame meant to heal his curse? Or the spark meant to destroy them all? He turned away, but the priest's words followed him. "You cannot outrun prophecy, Alpha. You were marked for it long before you met her." Night deepened beyond the citadel's walls. The rain had stopped, replaced by the low hum of wind moving through the mountains. Damien dismissed the guards, ordering them to leave her untouched, unharmed. But when he reached the doorway, he paused and looked back one last time. The firelight had dimmed to embers. And yet, around her body, a faint halo shimmered, a mist of silver that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. It wasn't light. It was life. A kind of life that defied logic, law, even gods. He didn't know why, but he couldn't look away. Lyria dreamed again. In her dream, the world was made of moonlight. She stood barefoot upon a glass lake that reflected stars instead of her face. Every ripple carried whispers, voices layered upon voices, calling her name. But this time, they did not sound like strangers. The air shimmered. From the horizon came a figure, a woman cloaked in white fire, her hair silver as the moon, her eyes the color of sorrow. Lyria felt her throat tighten. The woman's face, it was her own. "Who are you?" she breathed, though no sound left her lips. The woman smiled faintly, sorrow heavy in her expression. "I am who you were. I am who you will become." The world trembled. Light spiraled around them, threads of silver and flame weaving into patterns she could not understand. "The seal is breaking," the woman whispered. They thought it mercy. It was fear. Lyria shook her head, tears streaking her cheeks even in dream. "No, this isn't real. I'm nothing. I can't even walk." The woman stepped closer, cupping her face. Her touch was warm, not of flesh, but of light. "Child of the flame," she murmured, "your weakness was the lock. Your suffering, the key. You were never broken, only sealed." The silver lake began to burn. Flames danced upon the water without consuming it. And from the depths rose symbols, ancient sigils she had seen carved on the citadel walls. They formed a circle around her, glowing brighter, binding her in light. "When the moon bleeds silver," the woman's voice echoed, "the Alpha's curse will end. But remember this, Lyria, every flame that heals can also destroy." The woman began to fade. "Who are you?" Lyria cried again, desperate now. The answer came like thunder. I am the first flame. And you, my child, are the last. The light consumed everything. Lyria awoke with a gasp. Her body trembled violently, the bed shaking beneath her. The air around her shimmered with faint heat though the fire had burned low. Her skin glowed faintly, veins lit with silver light that pulsed in rhythm with her heart. Tears streamed down her face, not from pain, but from recognition. Every word from her dream lingered inside her like an echo she couldn't unhear. The paralysis that had caged her for years pulsed with warmth now, strange and alive. She could feel something stirring beneath the numbness. Not strength yet, but awareness. It terrified her. Her breath came uneven, her hands clutching the sheets as whispers brushed her mind again, those same ancient voices, soft but insistent. Awaken, child of fire. Remember what was taken. The door creaked open. Damien stood there, framed by the flickering light. His expression was hard, but his eyes betrayed something else, a flicker of conflict, a pull he could neither resist nor explain. Her glow dimmed as she turned her face toward him. He saw the fear, the exhaustion, but also something new. Defiance. You dreamed again, he said, voice low, almost wary. She didn't answer. Couldn't. Her throat felt tight, words trapped beneath too much truth. But he saw the wetness on her cheeks. He saw the way her fingers trembled. The air between them thickened. Something invisible thrummed, a resonance that drew his wolf forward until it pressed against his skin, restless, hungry. Damien forced himself to breathe. He had been cursed since birth. His blood carried a darkness that devoured every bond he tried to form. Every mate chosen by his wolf had withered, their life force burned away by the shadow inside him. He had sworn never to claim another. Yet this girl. When he touched her, the shadow had recoiled. It was impossible. He moved closer, each step measured, as if afraid to disturb the air itself. The scent of her filled the room again, wild rain, iron, and faint fire. You should rest, he said, though his voice betrayed how little he believed it. Her gaze held his, unflinching. In that silence, something ancient stirred, a recognition deeper than memory. He could hear his heartbeat pounding against the quiet. He could hear hers answering. The prophecy clawed at his mind. The crippled flame shall heal the Alpha's curse, yet burn the world in her awakening. He didn't know which terrified him more, the healing or the burning. He turned to leave, but the old priest's voice drifted from the doorway, faint and distant as a dying prayer. She has begun to see. The moon will bleed soon, my king. You must decide which side of the prophecy you will stand on, salvation or ruin. The Alpha said nothing, but the way his hand lingered on the doorframe, the way his shoulders stiffened, it betrayed him. He already feared the answer. Inside the chamber, Lyria stared at the ceiling. The glow beneath her skin faded, but the warmth remained. Her tears dried. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the fear, a single thought rose clear as a vow. If destiny made me its prisoner, I'll set destiny on fire. Outside, the wind howled through the citadel's towers. The moon broke free of the clouds, silver, sharp, and watching. Its light poured through the narrow window, landing upon her chest like a brand. The sigils carved in the stone walls flickered in answer. And far beneath the fortress, something old stirred in its sleep. The prophecy had begun to breathe. If you believe power should never be chained, subscribe to Sophie's romance collections. Only those who fear truth would stay silent. The storm broke before dawn. Thunder rolled across the citadel's towers, shaking the banners of the moon court. Inside, tension had already gathered thick, alive, a storm of its own. By sunrise, the Empire was awake. Whispers spread faster than light. The Alpha has taken a crippled Luna. Every noble house reacted with venom, disbelief, or fear. Some spoke of insult to bloodlines, others of blasphemy against the moon's chosen order. To them, it wasn't just scandal, it was rebellion. The citadel's great hall filled before the bells could finish ringing. Velvet robes, jeweled collars, hungry eyes, predators cloaked in civility. They came to witness, to condemn, to taste the ruin of their king. At the far end of the hall, Damien sat upon the throne he despised, his posture carved from iron. The beast beneath his skin watched through him, restless, pacing. And beside him, frail yet unflinching, Lyria sat in silence. Her chair had no throne's weight, yet her presence drew every gaze like gravity. She felt their eyes burning through her, the heat of judgment pressing against her lungs. Every whisper was a blade, every look a wound. But she didn't flinch. Not yet. Her fingers rested on her lap, pale against the fabric of her gown, hiding the tremor she refused to show. The doors burst open. A woman's perfume, familiar, sweet, venomous, swept through the chamber before her voice did. "My daughter." Lady Marwen glided forward in morning gray, veil trailing, hands pressed dramatically to her chest. The court parted for her like water, though the ripples she left were poison. Her lips trembled in false grief. "I came as soon as I heard. Tell me it isn't true. Tell me she hasn't ensnared you, my lord." The hall murmured. Lyria's breath hitched, the word mother choking her before it reached her lips. She'd hoped never to see that face again. Damien's eyes sharpened, but his tone stayed calm, too calm. "Lady Marwen, you were not summoned." "I come not as noble," she said, bowing just enough to feign respect, but as a mother whose child is in danger. A ripple of sympathy moved through the gathered crowd. Marwen knew her game well. She'd always known how to wear tears like jewels. "She has bewitched you, Alpha," Marwen whispered, voice trembling as she turned toward the court. "This girl you call Luna, she was born cursed. The priest said so when she was a child. I hid it for shame, but I can hide no more. Her ailment was no wound of flesh, but a mark of the old flame, a sickness of the soul." A murmur rose like thunder across the chamber. Lyria's nails dug into her palms until blood welled. She wanted to scream, to deny, but her throat refused her. Every gaze on her now was sharper, hungrier. Even those who had pitted her now looked at her like something unclean. Damien rose slowly. The air shifted, the low vibration of authority, raw and ancient, rolled off him. "She carries no curse," he said, each word a blade of restraint. "She carries the mark of prophecy." Marwen smiled faintly beneath her veil. "Yes, the prophecy that will burn the world. And you would make her your Luna." Silence. No one dared breathe. Then came another voice, silken, deep, confident. "Perhaps the lady speaks truth." Every head turned as Lord Cashin stepped forward from the crowd. Tall, golden-haired, his wolf's aura flared sharp as steel. He was alpha of the northern clans, second only to Damien in strength and known rival since their youth. His smirk was pure calculation. "You speak of prophecy, my king. But the old texts name the flame as destruction, not salvation. Will you gamble the fate of our kind for her?" Damien's eyes narrowed. "This is no gamble. This is my claim." Cashin circled closer, his boots echoing in the hall. "Then you won't mind if I test it? Let the council decide if your Luna is chosen or cursed." Gasps filled the room. A formal challenge, it wasn't merely politics now. It was blood. Before Damien could speak, Marwen stepped forward, clutching an ancient scroll. Her eyes glistened with false sorrow. "I beg the court to see this," she said, raising the parchment high. "A record sealed by the priests of Eldrin decades ago. It names my daughter not as heir, but as vessel for the fire that consumed her lineage. It says her kind brings ruin to every alpha they touch." The words echoed like a curse reborn. Cashin smiled. "There. Proof enough." Damien's wolf stirred, claws scraping beneath his skin. He could smell the lie, rotten, old, deliberate. But truth mattered less than spectacle here. The nobles didn't want proof, they wanted a reason to fear. He descended from the throne, his presence devouring the space between them. "Enough," he said, voice low but laced with command that made even Cashin's wolves hesitate. "You want to test my Luna? Then you'll face me first." Cashin's grin widened. "Gladly." The hall erupted in motion, guards clearing the circle, nobles retreating to the edges, whispers hissing like sparks. Even Marwen stepped back, though triumph glittered behind her tears. Lyria watched, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed for him to stop. The hall wasn't a battlefield, it was a trap, and she could feel it closing. She whispered his name. Damien, don't. He didn't look at her. Couldn't. The beast had taken root too deep now, its fury entwined with his pulse. Cashin's claws extended, gold light shimmering along his arms as he shifted partially wolf and man fused, a form of dominance. Damien didn't shift. He didn't need to. The moment Cashin lunged, time fractured. The sound of impact cracked like thunder, Damien's fist connecting with Cashin's ribs, sending him crashing into the marble pillars. Dust rained down. The hall gasped. Cashin rose, growling, blood dripping from his mouth. You fight for her? For a broken witch. Damien's eyes flared silver. I fight for what's mine. Cashin charged again, faster this time. Claws met claws, flesh tore, power rippled through the air like heat lightning. Wolves within the audience struggled to stay human, the primal call between alphas shook them to their bones. Lyria's body trembled with each impact, the air vibrating with fury and dominance. Her paralysis, once constant, now flickered with strange sensation. She could feel again, pain, fear, the echo of his heartbeat through her own. When Cashin's claws grazed Damien's neck, blood spilled a thin line, dark and shimmering in torchlight. The scent hit Lyria like fire. Something ancient stirred inside her. The voices she dreamed of, the whispers of flame, rose again, louder now alive. He bleeds for you, heir of fire. Will you remain silent? Her pulse thundered. The world blurred. For the first time in years, she felt the weight of her legs. Weak, trembling, uncertain, but real. The hall roared around her, but she heard only him. Damien, struggling against Cashin's grip, the beast within him close to breaking free. If it did, he'd destroy everything, the court, the throne, himself. Lyria's hands gripped the armrests. Pain lanced through her spine like lightning. Then movement. A single, trembling step. Gasps echoed through the hall as she rose, unsteady but standing. Her breath came in sharp, ragged pulls. The glow returned, silver and faint flame weaving beneath her skin. Her paralysis fell away like ashes. Cashin froze mid-lunge, eyes widening. Even Damien paused, panting, torn between shock and disbelief. Lyria's voice carried across the silence, soft yet heavy with power. Enough. The torches flared higher. Every shadow in the hall bent toward her. Her glow intensified, rippling through the air like heat off molten metal. When she stepped forward, the marble beneath her feet cracked faintly, small veins of light spreading outward. Cashin stumbled back. What are you? She met his gaze without fear. I am what you tried to bury. Damien moved toward her, but she raised a trembling hand. The energy pulsing from her made the air thrum, wild, raw, barely contained. Her voice wavered between exhaustion and revelation. They said the flame would burn the world, she whispered, eyes on Damien. Maybe they're right. He stared at her, chest heaving, blood still marking his throat. Her strength terrified him, and yet it was beautiful. It called to him in ways he couldn't fight. Cashin snarled, regaining his footing. She's a monster. Before Damien could move, Cashin lunged again. But the moment his claws touched the light surrounding her, they caught fire. Silver flame erupted, devouring his arm in a heartbeat. He screamed, collapsing to the floor, writhing as the light burned without consuming flesh, burning spirit instead. Lyria fell to her knees, the glow fading instantly, breath shattered. The power left her body as quickly as it came. She swayed, the world spinning, but Damien caught her before she hit the ground. His arms were warm, strong, grounding her back into the moment. She looked up, eyes glistening. Maybe they're right, she whispered, voice cracking. He cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek with a tenderness that trembled beneath the fury still burning in him. They're wrong, he said quietly. You're mine. The words silenced the hall. Not a single noble dared breathe. Even Marwen's mask faltered, her horror too raw to hide. Damien rose with Lyria in his arms, his gaze sweeping over the assembly. Let every wolf who doubts me remember this, he said. You question her, you question me. And I do not forgive betrayal. No one moved. No one dared. He carried Lyria from the hall, past the shattered marble, past Cassion's smoldering pride, past the mother who had just lost her last weapon. Outside, the storm had broken entirely. The sky was blood-red at the edges, the moon veiled but bright. Damien stopped at the Citadel's balcony, letting the cold air wash over them both. She leaned weakly against him, exhausted, trembling. Her voice barely a whisper. "Damien, what if the prophecy's true? What if I burn everything?" He turned his head, his lips close to her ear, his words more vow than comfort. "Then I'll burn with you." The wind carried his promise into the night. Below, the Empire stirred in chaos. Above, the moon began to bleed. The first clash had ended, but the war of destiny had just begun. Subscribe to Sophie's romance collections, where forbidden love and destiny collide in fire and moonlight. Night descended over the citadel like a heavy veil, swallowing the last embers of daylight. The wind that moved through the fortress walls carried whispers, some born of awe, others of fear. Inside the Alpha's chamber, the world slowed. The noise of court faded, the echo of protests died beyond the marble corridors. Only the fire spoke now. Its soft crackle painted the room in hues of amber and shadow. Lyria sat near it, her legs wrapped in thick furs, the faint warmth seeping into her skin. She looked small against the vastness of the stone hall, small but not fragile. The flames reflected in her eyes, flickering like memories she wished to forget. Damien stood a few feet away, silent. His armor lay discarded on the table, his tunic dark with the marks of a day spent fighting both men and destiny. For a long while, neither spoke. The tension between them was no longer sharp, it had softened into something heavier, quieter, something that lingered in the space between words. Finally, he moved. His steps were unhurried, his gaze fixed on her as if drawn by something beyond his will. He came to kneel beside her, the firelight catching in his hair, turning strands of black into liquid bronze. His hand rested on his knee, steady, controlled, but his other reached for hers. He didn't touch her scars. He traced the space between them. His thumb brushed near the back of her hand, where her skin was smooth, untouched by pain. It was deliberate, gentle, reverent, as though to remind her that there were parts of her life still untouched by cruelty. She didn't pull away, but her breath trembled. "You shouldn't be here," she murmured, her voice fragile, cracking like thin glass. He looked up, eyes shadowed but soft. "Where else should I be?" She turned away, her gaze falling to the fire. "Among your kind. Among wolves who walk, not crawl. I don't belong in your world." He studied her quietly, the faintest smile ghosting across his lips, sad, knowing. "You're wrong." The words were simple, but the way he said them pressed into the air, heavy with conviction. He leaned closer. The scent of rain still clung to him, mixed with smoke and steel. "You think I don't see what they see," he said softly. "That I don't know how they whisper your name like it's a curse? I hear them, Lyria. Every word. Every doubt." Her fingers tightened against the blanket draped over her legs. "And yet you claim me." "Yes." "Why?" Her voice rose slightly, trembling with the ache of disbelief. "You could have any she-wolf. Any Luna from the noble houses. Why curse yourself with someone broken?" His jaw flexed, a shadow crossing his face. "Because I know what it means to be broken." The silence that followed was sharp, almost painful. He exhaled slowly, his gaze distant now, drawn somewhere deep within memory. "When I was 17, he began, voice low, hoarse, I lost control under the full moon. My wolf. I couldn't contain it. My brother tried to stop me. He believed he could reach me." His hands tightened slightly, the fire's glow reflecting the pain etched into every word. "I tore him apart before the dawn." Lyria's breath caught. He didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on the flames, his voice quieter now, stripped bare. "They called it the curse of the Valen blood. Said my soul was too dark, my rage too wild. I believed them for years. I built the citadel to control it, to control me. But the truth," he hesitated, a muscle ticking in his jaw. "The truth is, you never really caged the monster. You just learned to stand beside it." The fire popped, sending sparks into the air between them. Lyria's gaze softened. She saw it now, the haunted edges of his silence, the weight in his eyes that power could never erase. "You carry guilt," she whispered. "The kind that never sleeps." He turned his head slowly toward her. "And you carry pain." Their eyes met. The distance between them felt like a heartbeat. Her throat tightened. "My stepmother made sure of that." The words slipped out before she could stop them. They hung there, fragile and cold. He didn't speak. He just waited. "She hated me," Lyria said, voice trembling. "From the day I could speak, she made sure I learned what silence tasted like. Locked doors. Empty plates. I thought hunger was a kind of love because she said it was discipline." Her eyes glossed with tears, but they didn't fall. She stared into the fire, watching her own reflection tremble in the flame. "When I was 16, she gave me a cup of wine to celebrate my birthday. I thought," her voice broke, a small laugh escaping her lips, bitter and soft, "I thought maybe she finally saw me. Maybe she wanted to be a mother." Her hand shook. His hand found hers again this time. He didn't hesitate. "She smiled as I drank it," Lyria whispered. "By nightfall, my legs were gone." And she laughed. "She told me no man would ever want me now." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with the sound of his breathing, deep, deliberate, as though he were holding the beast within at bay. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but edged with steel. "She will regret every breath she ever took." Lyria looked at him then, truly looked. The fury in his eyes wasn't wild, it was controlled, precise, dangerous. It wasn't pity that moved through him. It was protection. But she shook her head slowly. "It won't change what's already gone." He leaned closer, his face inches from hers, the fire painting his skin in gold and shadow. "No," he murmured. "But it will remind her that you're not gone." Her heart stumbled. For the first time in years, someone spoke of her not as a ghost or burden, but as someone still here, still worth avenging. She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat thick with emotion she didn't understand. He reached up, brushing away a strand of hair that had fallen across her cheek. His hand lingered, thumb tracing the line of her jaw. "You are not broken," he said softly. "You are surviving." The words hit deeper than any blade. Something inside her cracked, not from pain, but from release. She closed her eyes, tears finally slipping free, quiet and unashamed. He didn't move to stop them. He just stayed there, close enough that his warmth could steady her. Outside, the wind howled across the citadel walls, the ancient stone groaning under the pressure of the night. Inside, the fire flickered lower, shadows creeping closer around them. He didn't look away from her. "You think I saved you," he said, his voice almost a whisper. "But the truth is, you've been saving yourself for far longer than I ever could." Her lips parted, but no words came. He leaned forward, closer, slower this time. The air between them thickened, every heartbeat louder than the storm outside. His breath brushed her skin, warm, deliberate, magnetic. Her pulse stuttered beneath her throat, and for one fragile moment, the world narrowed to that space between them, the question, the hunger, the fragile edge of something new. Then the fire dimmed. A strange chill swept through the room. The light shifted from gold to crimson. Both froze. Damien turned toward the window. The moon outside bled red across the sky, staining the world in the color of omen. The air grew heavier, the scent of iron and magic thickening. Lyria felt it first, a pressure in her chest, a whisper inside her mind. The same voice from her dreams, calling her name, but sharper now, urgent. Damien's wolf stirred violently beneath his skin, restless, warning. He rose slowly, scanning the darkness beyond the window, instincts alive. Lyria's breath came shallow. Her fingers trembled against the armrest, the silver glow beneath her skin pulsing again, stronger, brighter. The crimson light painted her face like fire. "What is that?" she whispered. He looked at her, eyes fierce, protective. "An omen." The flames in the hearth flared suddenly, rising twice their height, licking toward the ceiling. The air hissed, the scent of burning metal filling the room. Lyria flinched. The mark on her arm, the one that had always looked like nothing more than a faint scar, began to shimmer, alive with heat. Damien crossed the room in a single stride, his hands gripping her shoulders. "Lyria, look at me." Her eyes met his wide, terrified. "It hurts." He could feel the energy radiating from her, raw, unstable, ancient. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from recognition. This was what the priests had whispered about. The seal. The prophecy. The crippled flame awakening. The world around them shuddered, as though the citadel itself recognized her power. And then silence. The fire dimmed. The moonlight faded to pale silver once more. Lyria gasped, the glow receding from her skin. Her body sagged forward, weak, trembling. He caught her before she fell, her head pressing against his chest. Her heartbeat was unsteady. He held her close, his hand tangled in her hair, his voice low, steady, anchoring her. "Breathe. You're safe. I've got you." Her fingers clutched his sleeve, desperate. "What's happening to me?" He looked toward the dying fire, the faint smoke curling upward like a warning written in air. Something the world isn't ready for. He stayed there, holding her long after her body stilled, long after her breathing evened out. When she finally drifted into restless sleep, he lifted her gently and carried her to the bed. He brushed the damp strands of hair from her forehead, his thumb tracing the faint glow that lingered beneath her skin. In that quiet, something unspoken passed between them, a bond sealed not by words, but by shared survival. He whispered into the darkness, voice rough with the promise of both love and war. "Trust me or leave. But if you stay, everything you've ever known will burn." The wind howled again through the citadel's towers, carrying his vow into the night. And as the crimson moon bled into dawn, the world outside shifted. Something ancient had awakened. And neither of them could ever go back. If you believe no soul should be silenced by pain, subscribe to Sophie's romance collections. Only those who've never known love would look away now. The torches burned low in the council chamber, their light trembling across the polished stone floor like frightened spirits. The air was thick, choking with judgment, heavy with the scent of incense and lies. Outside, thunder pressed against the palace walls, as though the storm itself demanded entry. Inside, silence ruled until the doors opened and the serpent arrived. She came draped in gold and deceit, every movement rehearsed to perfection. Her voice coiled through the room like smoke. "My lords," she said sweetly, "forgive the intrusion. I come bearing truth." Behind her, a man stumbled forward, weak and beaten. His wrists were raw from chains, his eyes hollow with the kind of pain that could only come from years of regret. Lyria froze where she stood, breath trapped in her chest. "Father." The word was small, fragile, almost afraid to exist. The stepmother's smile didn't waver. "Tell them," she whispered, the command a blade against his throat. "Tell them what your daughter truly is." The old man's lips trembled. He looked at his daughter, saw the bruises, the faint silver shimmer still pulsing beneath her skin, and broke. His voice cracked like glass. She was born with the mark of the flame." Gasps tore through the hall. Scrolls fell from trembling hands. The priests began to murmur, their voices rising like a swarm. "The flame's heir, cursed by moon and fire, she bears the seal of destruction." Lyria took a step back, her knees weakening beneath her. The whisper of her blood, her own heartbeat, sounded like fire roaring in her ears. She didn't understand. She didn't ask for any of this. Damien stood beside her, his body a wall of tension and fury. "Enough," he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. "She has done nothing. You will not touch her." But the council was no longer listening. Fear had made them deaf. Power had made them blind. The stepmother stepped closer, her perfume sweet and suffocating. Her words dripped poison into every ear. "He defends her because she's bewitched him. Look at him, an alpha brought to his knees by a crippled girl's spell. This is no love, my lords. This is corruption." The council murmured in agreement, their cowardice growing teeth. One priest stepped forward, clutching an ancient relic, a rod of silver, etched with runes. If she bears the mark, the light will reveal it. Before Damien could stop him, the priest pressed the rod to Lyria's arm. It hissed, and a glow erupted beneath her skin, silver, alive, defiant. The chamber gasped. Lyria's breath hitched. Pain seared through her veins, bright and merciless. Her body trembled, but her eyes stayed open, meeting Damien's. For a moment, he saw no weakness in her, no fear, only the same quiet fire that had drawn him from the moment he first saw her. Then the guards moved. They came in silver armor, their eyes cold. The council ordered her seized, their words cutting through the chaos. Damien roared, shifting halfway into his wolf before the runes in the walls ignited. Magic chains lashed out, binding his power, forcing his wolf back beneath his skin. He fell to one knee, his eyes glowing with fury. "Damien!" Lyria cried out, reaching toward him. But the guards pulled her away, her fingers grazing the air where his hand had been. The stepmother's laughter was soft, almost tender. She leaned in close to Lyria, her voice a whisper that sliced deeper than any blade. "You will die before you ever walk again." The world blurred. Pain and betrayal crashed over Lyria like waves of ice. Her father turned away, broken by his own weakness. Damien's muscles strained against the spell, his growl rumbling low, primal, desperate. "Let her go." But the council ignored him. The priests began chanting, ancient words meant to bind and silence. The runes on the walls burned brighter, their glow painting the chamber in cruel silver light. Lyria's body shook as the power inside her responded, wild, unfamiliar, unstoppable. She fell to her knees, chains clattering. The glow beneath her skin flared, spreading up her arms like veins of lightning. And then silence. The storm outside stopped. The air stilled, too heavy to breathe. Every torch in the hall flickered once and died. For a heartbeat, the world held its breath. Then came the scream. Not hers. The stepmother's. Her golden dress ignited, not from flame, but from light itself. The power that had been sealed within Lyria since birth tore free, invisible and yet blinding. The air cracked, the walls shuddered. Every shadow in the hall fled from her. Lyria's eyes opened. No longer trembling, no longer afraid. Silver burned where pupils once were. And for the first time, the wolf within Damien fell silent in awe. The priests stumbled backward, their relics shattering in their hands. The council fled. Only the stepmother remained, clawing at her burning gown, shrieking in rage. "You monster," she spat. "You'll destroy us all." Lyria's voice was calm, eerily calm. "Then perhaps you should not have tried to destroy me first." But the light dimmed just as quickly as it came. Her strength faltered. Her body, still fragile, collapsed under the weight of power too ancient to wield. Damien broke free from the remnants of the spell and caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin was ice-cold, her pulse faint. He looked at the priests, at the council still trembling in the corners. "If any of you touch her again," he said quietly, "I will end you." They believed him. He carried her from the hall, every step echoing through the silence she'd left behind. Outside, the storm had returned, but it was different now. The rain smelled of ash and lightning. Lyria stirred weakly in his arms. Her voice was barely a whisper. "She was right, wasn't she? I am cursed." Damien stopped, lowering his forehead against hers. His breath was ragged, his voice a raw wound. "No, you're not cursed. You're what they fear most, a power they can't control." She wanted to believe him, but darkness was already pulling her under. The last thing she saw before her eyes closed was his face, torn between fury and heartbreak, the storm reflected in his gaze. Hours later, in the solitude of his chamber, Damien sat beside her sleeping form. The healers had left. The council had fled. The citadel had gone quiet, but peace was a lie. He could feel it, something ancient had awakened, something none of them understood. He reached for her hand, tracing the faint glow that still pulsed beneath her skin. It felt alive, sentient, waiting. "Lyria," he whispered, his voice barely holding together. What did they do to you? The wind howled outside, carrying voices that weren't meant for mortal ears. He closed his eyes, fighting the urge to shift, to release his wolf and destroy every soul that had hurt her. But rage would not save her. Not now. He remembered the look in her eyes before she fell, the way pain and power had met in a single heartbeat. It terrified him. It fascinated him. It broke him. The stepmother's words haunted him still. You will die before you ever walk again. But he had seen something different in her, something sacred. The silver light that had scorched the air wasn't a curse. It was a promise. And deep down, Damien knew, whatever she truly was, whatever she was destined to become, the world would not be ready. He rose, walking to the window where the crimson moon hung heavy above the mountains. Lightning tore through the clouds, lighting his eyes with its reflection. She is mine, he said softly, the vow not of possession but of defiance. And I will burn the world before I let them break her again. Behind him, Lyria stirred. The faintest tremor crossed her fingers. Her breath deepened. And somewhere deep within her, the mark of the flame pulsed once, steady, alive. The night trembled. The prophecy had been spoken. The betrayal complete. But destiny was only beginning to rise. The moon hung swollen and merciless over the capital, pale light bleeding down on the marketplace like judgment itself. The scent of whetstone and iron filled the air, carried by a wind that seemed to hold its breath. Every street was silent. Every window shuttered. Only the altar burned with light, an ancient monolith of blackened rock, carved with symbols that predated the empire itself. And before it, bound in silver and blood, knelt Lyria. Her hair clung to her face, damp with rain and tears. Her knees pressed into the cold stone, where hundreds before her had met their end. The runes carved beneath her glowed faintly, drinking her fear like wine. The priests stood in a circle around her, their chants low, rhythmic, almost mournful. Above them all, on the high steps, stood the stepmother, draped in crimson silk, her dagger gleaming like a shard of moonlight. Her voice rang out across the square, sweet and venomous. By decree of the council and by will of the gods, let this cursed child be cleansed. Let the flame be silenced before it devours the world. The crowd below murmured, torn between awe and terror. None dared move. None dared speak. The story of the flame's heir had haunted them for generations, and now she knelt before them, trembling and broken, her chains glinting like tears. Damien stood at the edge of the altar's circle, held back by guards and enchantments. The runes etched into the ground pulsed whenever he stepped closer, burning his boots, searing his skin. He could only watch, helpless, his wolf thrashing beneath his flesh, begging to be freed. "Don't do this," he snarled, voice cracking with rage. "She is not your enemy." The stepmother smiled. "Oh, but she is everyone's enemy. Even yours." Her dagger lifted, reflecting the moon. The priests' voices rose, their chants swelling into a single, dreadful note. The silver runes on the altar flared white-hot. Lyria lifted her eyes to the sky. The clouds parted. The moon stared down at her cold, unblinking. She had no strength left to fight, no reason left to hope. The prophecy was a curse, the power inside her a burden she never asked for. And yet, beneath all that fear, something stirred. A voice not her own. "You are not their offering. You are their reckoning." It was not loud, not even clear. But it was enough. The dagger descended. And the world broke open. A sound like thunder cracked through the square, but it came from no storm. It came from her. Her scream split the night, not a cry of pain, but of release. Fire exploded from her skin, pure and blinding, wrapping her body in a storm of silver flames. The dagger melted before it touched her. The altar shattered beneath her knees. The chains that bound her hissed, turned molten, and fell away. The priests stumbled back, their chants dying in their throats. The stepmother screamed as the air around her ignited, her silk gown catching fire like paper. The crowd scattered, chaos erupting through the marketplace. But Lyria did not see them. Her eyes burned silver white, her body lifted from the ground as though the moon itself was drawing her upward. The paralysis that had caged her since girlhood was gone. Her legs trembled, not with weakness, but with power. She took one step forward, then another. The ground trembled beneath her feet. "I am not your sacrifice," she said, her voice trembling the air. "I am not your curse. I am the flame you feared." The silver fire surged outward in a ring, devouring the altar, the relics, the lies of centuries. Every rune cracked and bled light. Every false prayer was silenced. The very air seemed to burn clean. The stepmother fell to her knees, face twisted with terror. "You don't understand what you've done," she cried. "You'll destroy us all." Lyria's gaze found her steady, merciless. "Then you should have left me in peace." She lifted her hand. The flames obeyed. They rose around the stepmother like a crown of retribution. The woman's scream echoed through the night as fire and shadow swallowed her whole. And then silence again. Only the rain fell, hissing against the dying embers. Lyria stood alone in the center of the ruin, her dress in tatters, her skin glimmering with faint veins of light. She looked down at her hands, hands that no longer trembled. The power that once frightened her now pulsed with calm rhythm, like the beat of a heart she was finally allowed to own. Damien broke through the circle of fallen guards and ashes, stumbling toward her. His armor was scorched, his skin raw, but his eyes were steady, locked on her as though nothing else in the world existed. "Lyria," he whispered, his voice unsteady. She turned to him slowly. For a moment, he didn't see the girl he had carried from the marketplace. He saw something older, something divine. The air around her shimmered, bending light itself. She looked both fragile and infinite. He took a cautious step closer. "It's over," he said softly. "You're free." Her gaze flickered, a faint sadness breaking through the glow. "No," she said quietly. "It's just beginning." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She lifted her eyes to the moon, and for a heartbeat, Damien thought he saw it pulse, as if answering her. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it carried across the square like a vow. The prophecy, it was never about ending the curse. It was about releasing it. The wind shifted, cold and sharp. The flames around them flickered once more, then moved. Not outward, not up, but back. They twisted into shapes, into shadows of figures not human, not wolf. Faces formed within the fire, eyes like molten silver, voices whispering in an ancient tongue. Damien grabbed her arm. "Lyria, what's happening?" She didn't answer. Her breath came shallow, her heartbeat too fast. The fire wasn't hers anymore, it was pulling from her, feeding on her life, her soul. Then a new voice spoke, deep, ancient, resonant. It came from the flames themselves. "You are not the only heir." The light dimmed. The fire folded inward, revealing a shape tall, cloaked in black, its eyes glowing like dying stars. The marketplace shuddered as the ground cracked beneath its feet. Damien instinctively pushed Lyria behind him, baring his teeth. "Who are you?" The figure's voice echoed, neither male nor female, but older than both. "I am the other half of what was stolen. The twin flame." The shadow bound in silence until she broke the seal. Lyria stared, unable to move. The prophecy spoke of one heir. "It lied," the voice said. "For the world cannot burn without both fire and ash." The figure extended a hand. Flames coiled around its fingers, whispering like serpents. "You woke me, sister. Now the balance must be restored." Damien's body tensed, his instincts screaming to protect her. "She owes you nothing." The shadow smiled, a cruel, knowing curve. "She owes the world everything. And the world will take it." The sky split open. Lightning clawed across the heavens, and the moon turned the color of blood. Lyria gasped, stumbling as the fire beneath her skin flared to life again. It pulsed in time with the shadow's aura, two forces drawn together, locked in orbit. She fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "I can feel it, he's inside me." The same blood, the same power. Damien knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders. "Then fight it. Don't let him take what's yours." Tears streaked her face, glowing faintly in the moonlight. "You don't understand. It is mine. He's part of me, what I was sealed away from. What they feared. The ground trembled, the altar's ruins collapsing into the earth. The figure stepped closer, and every torch in the city flared to life as if in salute. "Come," it said. "Together we will reignite what the gods tried to kill." Lyria looked up at him, at the reflection of her own fire burning in his eyes. For a heartbeat, she saw herself not as victim, not as cursed, but as creation itself. And then she shook her head. Her voice was hoarse, shaking, but sure. "No, I won't burn the world to heal my pain." The shadow froze. "You would deny your nature?" "I would define it," she said. The air stilled. Even the storm paused, waiting. Lyria rose, her body trembling but unyielding. The flames that had once consumed her now moved at her command, curling around her like living silk. Her eyes glowed silver-white as she stepped toward the shadow. "You were born from the same wound," she said, her tone steady. "But I am the part that survived it." And before the shadow could move, she reached forward, hand blazing, and pressed it against its chest. A sound like breaking glass filled the night. The shadow's form shuddered, the fire within it flickering. Its voice faltered. "You can't end me." "I'm not ending you," she whispered. "I'm reclaiming myself." Light erupted from her palm, a surge of power that tore through the air, filling every corner of the square with brilliance. The figure screamed, dissolving into embers that scattered into the sky like stars. When the light faded, Lyria stood alone once more, her body trembling, her breath ragged, but her eyes calm. The silver glow beneath her skin dimmed to a soft pulse, steady and alive. Damien caught her as she swayed, pulling her against his chest. He could feel her heart, strong and real, beating against his. She looked up at him, voice soft. "It's over." He nodded slowly, though part of him knew nothing truly ends, it only changes form. The crimson moon began to pale, returning to silver. The wind gentled. The city exhaled. As they stood amidst the ruins, the first light of dawn broke across the horizon, catching on the melted stones and shattered sigils. It looked almost beautiful, like the world itself had been remade. Lyria looked at the sky, her voice barely a breath. "I am not their sacrifice." Damien brushed a thumb across her cheek, smearing soot away. "No," he said. "You're their salvation." And as the light of morning touched her face, the last of the flames faded into her skin, no longer a curse, no longer a seal. Just her power. Just her truth. The prophecy was fulfilled. But the story of the flame had only just begun. The air still trembles with smoke and heat. Ash spirals like snow over the ruins of the courtyard. The altar lies split in two, veins of molten light searing through its ancient runes. The cries of the crowd fade to whispers, replaced by the sound of crackling embers and the steady, defiant rhythm of Lyria's breath. She stands in the center of it all, barefoot, unbound, wrapped in silver fire that bends but never burns her. Her hair lifts with the storm she's summoned, her eyes no longer fragile, no longer pleading. Power ripples through her veins like the echo of a forgotten goddess. The stepmother writhes on the ground, skin blistered and scorched, but alive. Her voice, once venomous, now breaks in a hollow rasp. She raises her gaze, and for the first time, her mask falls away. Beneath the ruin of her face, something darker stirs. Her irises bloom into pure black, swallowing all light. The smoke around her thickens alive, pulsing with ancient hatred. Damien takes a step forward, his chest heaving, half in awe, half in terror. His wolf still trembles beneath his skin, clawing for release, recognizing something older than the moon itself in the power before him. "Your power." His voice falters as he kneels beside her, his hand hovering near her arm but not daring to touch. "It's not just fire, is it?" Her gaze flicks to him, gentle, distant, but laced with sorrow. The flames soften around her, dimming to a glow. "It never was," she whispers. "It's memory. Every scream, every prayer, every injustice, alive in me." The ground hums, and the scent of iron fills the air. She turns slowly toward the horizon. Beyond the fractured gates of the city, the night shifts unnaturally. Clouds part, and the moon bleeds silver onto the valley below. From that light, movement stirs. Shapes emerge, massive, deliberate, unstoppable. An army of dark wolves, their eyes glinting like mirrors, their fur rippling with smoke and shadow. Their growls roll across the land like distant thunder. Lyria's heartbeat slows, steady as a war drum. "They're coming," she says, almost to herself. Damien rises, his hands clenched. "Who are they?" "The other heirs," she breathes. "The ones who refuse to die." He stares at her, caught between devotion and dread. His voice breaks when he finally speaks. Then the prophecy. It wasn't about one queen. Her lips curve, not in triumph, but understanding. "No," she says quietly. "It was about a war." A gust tears through the ruins, carrying sparks into the sky like dying stars. The crowd below kneels instinctively, but not in worship, in fear of what's awakening. Lyria looks down at her stepmother, still writhing, still whispering curses in a language no one remembers. The woman's voice fractures through the smoke. "You think you've won, little flame? You've only opened the door." The words pierce deeper than any blade. Lyria's fire falters for a heartbeat, just long enough for her to feel the weight of it, the cost of freedom, the shadow that always follows light. She glances back at Damien, her eyes softening once more. He steps closer now, unable to resist the gravity between them. His hand trembles as he touches her face, fingertips brushing the soot on her cheek. "Then whatever comes next," he murmurs, "we face it together." The fire around her flares again, wrapping both of them in its light. It hums with something beyond power, something human. But her gaze never leaves the horizon. The earth trembles beneath her feet, and the air thickens with approaching howls. The storm is not over. The flames rise higher, painting the sky in defiance as her voice echoes, clear and fierce enough to cut through the chaos. If you believe no one should be silenced or broken, subscribe now. Only the cruel stand with her stepmother. Comment, "I rise for justice," if your heart burns for freedom. The wind carries her words far beyond the palace, into every shadow, every silent home. The wolves answer with a roar that shakes the mountains. And the world, for the first time in centuries, begins to tremble awake. The ground quakes beneath the ashes of the palace. The tremor comes not from the aftermath of destruction, but from something deeper, something ancient, stirring in the bones of the earth. The air thickens, heavy with power, as though the world itself has drawn its breath and refuses to release it. Lyria stands motionless in the center of the ruin, her silver flames dimming into a steady pulse that mirrors the rhythm of her heart. The heat fades from rage to awareness. The silence after the storm is deafening. The crowd has fled, the guards lie broken or vanished, and the altar, once a symbol of her execution, now smolders like an open wound in the stone. Damien's shadow stretches toward her, the last survivor of a shattered night. His chest rises and falls, slow, cautious, as if one wrong movement could shatter the fragile peace that clings to the air. His voice is rough, low. "It's over," he says, but the words tremble as they leave his mouth. Lyria does not turn to him. The flames around her flicker once, uncertain, as though even the fire knows the lie hidden in his reassurance. Her eyes trace the horizon, the valley now painted in the eerie luminescence of a moon that refuses to settle. The crimson tint fades, leaving behind an unnatural silver that burns too bright, too alive. The wind shifts. The scent of charred stone is replaced by something colder, something metallic and alive. It hums beneath her skin. Her fingers curl unconsciously, the pulse of power threading through her veins once more. From somewhere deep within the earth, a sound rises, a resonance, dark and ancient, like the growl of something enormous awakening after ages of sleep. The ground splits slightly beneath her feet, thin lines of light tracing symbols she doesn't understand but feels. Damien stiffens, his hand instinctively reaching for her. "Lyria." The air cuts him off. The sound deepens, vibrating through their bones, through the palace walls that still cling to life. Then, through the tremor and the echo of flame, a voice emerges. It is not human. It is older than language, yet every syllable thrums with meaning. The flame has awoken. Lyria's breath catches. The fire in her eyes brightens, responding as though the words are a command written into her blood. Her gaze snaps to the heart of the courtyard, where the altar split. The crack widens, and from it, a pulse of light escapes, a heartbeat made of pure energy. The voice continues, lower now, closer. But the true Alpha has not. The words ripple through the air, echoing across the ruins, through the forest, into the mountains beyond. Every creature that hears it freezes. Wolves lift their heads to the wind, eyes glowing faintly under the silver moon. The forest answers with an unnatural stillness. Damien steps forward, his jaw tight, his pupils flickering gold as his wolf senses the power behind the sound. Who said that? He demands, though he knows no mortal throat could have formed it. Lyria's eyes meet his. The flames in them reflect his trembling silhouette. Not a man, she whispers. A memory. The air trembles again, this time colder. The light from the moon flickers once, twice, then steadies, though weaker than before. Shadows lengthen unnaturally, crawling up the ruins, clinging to the edges of her light. She feels it, something beneath the earth pulling at her, recognizing her as kin yet not as queen. The fire that once liberated her now hesitates, unsure whether to burn or bow. Damien moves closer. What's happening? Her answer is quiet, but it cuts through the trembling air. The bond isn't complete. What bond? The one the prophecy never told. She lifts her gaze to the bleeding horizon. The flame rises only when the Alpha calls it. Without him, it's chaos. Half-born power. Incomplete awakening. His breath stutters. Then who? The moon flickers again. The last remnants of the crimson glow return for an instant, painting the ruins in a haunting half-light. A shadow passes across its face, massive, winged, almost imperceptible, but enough to steal the warmth from the night. The whisper of wolves returns in the distance, but it's not their growl that chills them. It's the silence that follows it. The forest stops breathing. Even the flames seem to lean back, retreating into the cracks of the altar. Lyria steps forward, drawn toward the fissure in the earth. The heat beneath her soles no longer burns. Instead, it vibrates alive, aware. The markings beneath her feet shift and reform. For a moment, she sees the outline of something colossal: fangs, eyes, a crown of flame etched in the rock. The voice comes again, this time inside her mind. You're the spark, not the inferno. She gasps, clutching her chest. Her knees almost buckle under the pressure of it. Damien rushes forward, catching her just before she falls. The energy surges between them, her fire meeting his wolf, and, for a fleeting instant, the air itself bends around them. He feels it too. The pull. The connection. The unspoken truth that his soul has been orbiting hers long before this night. He steadies her, his breath hot against her temple. Tell me what it wants. Her voice is fragile, trembling, almost broken. It's not what it wants, she whispers. It's what it needs. The ground stills. The air settles. And yet, everything feels wrong. She looks up at the moon, the light now fractured as if something behind it moves. The true Alpha has not awakened, she murmurs. Which means, I was never the end of the prophecy. Her words linger like a curse. The world seems to listen. Damien's heartbeat thunders in his chest. Then who is? Before she can answer, the fissure erupts with light. A pillar of pure energy bursts skyward, tearing through the clouds, striking the moon itself. The silver orb quivers, its light dimming, flickering, then bleeding away entirely, leaving the world bathed in darkness. The silence afterward is unbearable. The flames vanish. The whispers fade. Even the heartbeat of the earth falls still. Lyria opens her eyes, the only source of light left. 2 rings of silver fire piercing the dark. Her voice, steady despite the fear threading through it, breaks the void. This isn't over. Damien stares at her, breathless. Lyria. But her attention is fixed upward. The moon flickers once more, as though struggling to reignite, and for a heartbeat, he sees it. A silhouette moving across its face. Broad-shouldered. Predatory. Eyes glowing like molten steel. When the light fades, his voice is gone. The night swallows sound, flame, everything. The Alpha's flame bride.